Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be doing the Unpopular Opinions 2.0 tag. This is a tag I created over on my main channel. If you've found this channel separate from my main channel is primarily about books, and more specifically usually fantasy books. And when I created this tag, the idea was to take, as you would guess from the name, some unpopular opinions and have questions that are oriented around that. And some of the questions had to do with adaptations, because as a fantasy fan, we are kind of in the golden age of fantasy adaptations, and so I wanted to focus on that a little bit. And now that I have this channel, and so much of this channel is about adaptations, manga, anime, those sorts of things, I thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to revisit this tag and focus not just on books, but some of the other kinds of stories that we get. So jumping into it, the first question is a genre great that you don't get the hype for. And I would love for all of you to let me know your answers to these questions. And don't worry if they really truly are super unpopular and you're a little nervous to say, because that's part of the fun, is just for us to be able to vocalize this. I'm kind of scared, even after having said that, to say this, but 20th Century Boys. So I feel like that's probably going to be the most unpopular thing I say in this entire video. But I have a reading vlog that has yet to go up, where I'm going through a lot of the comics and manga that were on my TBR for this year, and I was so excited to finally jump into 20th Century Boys. I've heard pretty much nothing but great things. Patrick from the channel Patrick Leo really likes 20th Century Boys. My husband really likes 20th Century Boys. I just see so much praise for it, and I started it and I'm like, I don't like it at all. I don't care about the mystery. I don't care about any of the characters. The art is not necessarily my cup of tea. The style is not something that I find I really enjoy. I don't know what it is, but it is not clicking anywhere. And we have the bind-ups, and my goal was to just get through the first bind-up, and I'm not even gonna do that. So I've pretty much read like a little bit past one volume, which I understand is not enough. I know it's not enough to really be fair to a manga series, because a lot of times with manga, you gotta give it time. Reading one volume is like reading a chapter in a book. But, oh man, I've done a few videos this year where I do a try a volume to kind of at least dip my toes into a different series and then figure out which ones are going to be highest priority. Something like Tokyo Ghoul. First volume was definitely very introductory. I like the art though. Seems like we could do something fun with this premise. Seems like it could feel very episodic. But yeah, 20th Century Boys, I'm just like, I don't even feel that after one volume. I'm just like, I don't care about any of this. All of the characters are annoying. I don't know, man. I do not care for it. And I was really surprised, and I was really excited to start it. Maybe that's part of it though. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm making excuses because I'm like, please don't be mad that I don't like a series that you like. But yeah, it's just so far, not for me. Anyway, I'm gonna move on now to the second question. Second question, a lot of you will feel the same, so I'm redeeming myself here. An adaptation you wish was never made. You can probably guess what I'm gonna say. The Witcher Netflix show. I was so excited when it was announced. I was so excited. And it seemed like a show that, as far as fantasy adaptations go, it seemed like this one could do really well. I was hoping when it was first announced that they would just make it animated, because the cinematic trailers for The Wild Hunt are amazing. I still every now and then revisit those and just watch them again. I'm like, dang, now I want to go play Witcher. And I was hoping for something like that. That's not obviously what they chose to do. I didn't like what they chose to do. I just don't think it's a very good show. I think a lot of the actors in the show are doing their best, but I just don't think that the writing is all that strong. And the things that they choose to adapt accurately from the books versus the things they choose to change, I'm very baffled by, because of course with an adaptation you're going to change some things, and I'm okay with that. I'm not somebody that needs it to be perfectly a pure exact replica, because it's an adaptation. That's the whole point. You're adapting it to a different medium and you're trying to fit the story into that medium, which means you're going to need changes. But the things that they chose to change, I'm repeating myself, it just doesn't make, I just don't think it's very good. But I know I'm not all that alone on that one. Question 3. A series you have to fight back your inner snob because you kind of think people just don't get it. And I don't know that I think people just don't get it necessarily for my answer here. It's more that I don't want to hear anybody's negative opinions, and that would be Final Fantasy 16. I mean, I don't want to hear your negative opinions about Final Fantasy 10 either, because those just hold such a special place in my heart. 16 is what I've been wanting. Actually, I liked 12 quite a bit, but I love Final Fantasy 10. I just feel like I've been waiting for another Final Fantasy to sweep me off my feet like 10 did. And I have just loved the icon fights. I really like the character Clive. I like Jill. I've really enjoyed the game, so I don't want to hear it. And if you don't like it, and you have criticisms, I mean, I have some criticisms as well. I just don't. I've seen some reviews where I'm like, what are you even talking? And I just get mad, and it's just one of those series that for whatever reason, I don't know. It's like, you know how all of us are aware that people's interests are not them, because we'll see people that will be like that, where someone will say valid criticisms about a work of art, and another person who loves that work of art will get so mad because it's almost as if they think you are insulting them, not the work of art. And you're like, you are a human being. That's a piece of art. You're separate. It's not about you, but I feel like it is when people say mean things about Final Fantasy. So I'm aware. So I just try not to look. But eventually I will look at negative reviews of 16 and react to them, even though it'll make me sad. Question 4. A series you're tired of everyone hating on, or a story or a medium or something like that. I don't know that I would say I think people hate on this necessarily. It's more just that I don't think people give it as much time and attention as they do the other. But shonen versus shoujo, I think there's so much more, people are far more willing to jump into a shonen. People embrace the campiness of a shonen. People are more willing, I think, to pick up a manga series or watch the anime of a shonen. Whereas with shoujo, there's just something about it where people decide that I don't think they decide that it's less than I don't think they're aware that they're doing it, but it's like they don't value it the same way, or they don't think it's as entertaining. And for some people, maybe it's just, they just truly don't really connect with the types of stories that they find in shoujo. But I do wonder, because I see similar things in fantasy versus fantasy romance, where sometimes it's not even, the book isn't even a fantasy romance, but there will be a romantic subplot, and as soon as the subplot comes up, there's like this weird, oh no, but like, I don't like those things. And you're like, you don't like something that most human beings partake in? The act of falling in love with another person. You just can't stand to see that in your stories, even though it's very realistic and a part of, for most people, their lives. I don't know. There's just something to do with like people falling in love, or love being a part of the plot of a story, or just certain things that seem associated with teenage girls or things like that, where people just have a certain view of it. And it makes me kind of sad, because there's plenty of shonen that I think is super campy and really ridiculous and fun and over the top, but I'm like, yeah, that's shonen, and also that's shoujo. It's just, we seem to prefer it in one over the other. Anyway, so shoujo, I just wish more people would give it a chance. And also, I gotta say, if you have your own recommendations, because I'm definitely guilty of dipping my toes into the series that are more popular, and a lot of times the ones that are more popular are shonen and not shoujo. So if you have your recommendations, please feel free to let me know, because I definitely could be better about this too. The next question would be a story that everyone thinks is really powerful, but you didn't really connect with. And I feel really bad, because I was just saying like, oh, people just like love shonen. And now I'm going to be like, this one though, it didn't really work for me. Demon Slayer. So I would watch more Demon Slayer. I like the main characters. I don't like any of the side characters. I find them so annoying that I can't. I don't remember what episode it was that I kind of was like, I'm good, but it was a decent amount in. And I got to, there's a whole arc, there's a whole plot line where they're in this forest and everybody's like, just wait, because, oh, the sibling bond, you're just going to see it at its best, and the animation's amazing in these parts. And like, the animation was amazing. And again, I really like the main character, and I like the relationship with his sister, but I just wasn't moved the way I think a lot of other people were from that plot line, I was like, yeah, they are really sweet with each other. That's kind of the thing, though. So, Demon Slayer. A character you don't get the hype for is the next question. The Darkling. I never really understood why people loved the Darkling within the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then when they made the adaptation, there are still so many people that ship the Darkling with Alina, and I'm still over here confused. I'm like, really? I especially think that in the adaptation, the character Mal, they improved upon from the books, so I'm like, it's even more so that they, if you're gonna talk about Alina and a ship and like her being with someone, I'm like, Mal's, they're cute. Why do we constantly still love the Darkling? We still want Alina with the Darkling, and why are so many people like, oh, I just feel bad. He's just a boy who needs to be loved. I'm like, is he though? Anyway, so I still am surprised. And if you love the Darkling, that's okay. I've always been surprised by the amount of love for the Darkling. The next question, a series everyone wants an adaptation for, but you don't. So I'm going to put a little asterisk on this one and say, I absolutely want a Cosmere adaptation. I just really don't want it to be live action. And I know that Sanderson has spoken before about how he thinks the Mistborn trilogy would be fantastic as a movie. He feels like live action will work really well for Stormlight. And there's a lot of places that aren't honestly that far from where I live and where he lives. He lives in Utah, if you don't. I'm sure most of you know that. I live in Arizona. So there's like a section between Utah and Arizona that would be great for the Shattered Plains and everything like that. So I know that it's his vision, and I have enjoyed so many of the books he's written, so I'm sure however it turns out, it would be amazing, but I just would love it to be animated. I would love it to be animated. It's my fear for what happened with Witcher. I just think animated would be great, especially if, like, oh my gosh, can the team who did Arcane do the Cosmere? It would be so good. Anyway, the last question, a series or a story that you think people have bias toward and don't really love or hate as much as they claim. And for this one, this is going to be kind of an odd answer, but I'm going to say Dune, and I am specifically referring to the book. And not because I think it's not worthy of people's love, and if some people hate it, then they hate it, and that's okay. But I think that with any kind of genre great, that oftentimes that the thing is they were pivotal for their genre, and they laid the foundation that since then a lot of things have built upon. And so if that was a book that you read around the time that it was popular, or if you read not so long after it came out and it still was a very impactful book, then I completely understand why it would be so meaningful to people, why they would love it so much. And there are people, of course, now that are picking it up for the first time, and they might still fall in love with that series and that book. But I do find that sometimes I think people fear their opinions won't be taken seriously if they don't say that they have immense respect for and really like some of the greats. I think that there's this idea of nobody will take me seriously, my opinions will be undervalued because I don't like this thing that everybody agreed upon. It was agreed upon that this was great, and it's like you're allowed to not love it and your opinions are still valid. And I think it's okay to say, I see why this would have been so influential for its time. Personally, I don't necessarily like it that much, but I can't imagine with what the landscape of whatever given genre you're talking about. In this case, we're talking about sci-fi and fantasy. But, you know, if you were to say, I can't imagine at that time how distinct this book would have been, how much it would have stood out. It just doesn't necessarily do that for me at this point. I think that's okay to say. I think people are just afraid to say that. But I don't know. Have you ever felt that pressure? Like you're supposed to love all of the, kind of tying this back to the first question, all the genre greats. But anyway, I would love to know your answers to these questions. You can say for any of these, they can be books, they can be manga, they can be video games. I chose from all different kinds of mediums, so feel free to do the same. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.